More and more of the Heartland's farmers and ranchers are learning that times may call for more than producing food and sending it off to market. They may want to consider growing a brand. That's a word that comes from ranching, and one California rancher has taken his name and stampeded his way to the kind of success that's made farmers and ranchers everywhere take notice. Here's Jason on how he did it.
Really nice beef, the Niman Ranch beef.
For Chef Mai Pham, the brand of beef is as important as how it's prepared. She's one of many gourmet chefs using Niman Ranch meats. The Niman name has been appearing more and more across the United States. Niman sells beef, pork, and lamb products to restaurants and grocers. The man behind it is Bill Niman.
One time I thought if we did $1 million, I told my wife if we did $1 million in sales, we would have arrived, I'd be ready. But, you know, in the food industry, that is such a huge business, and there's so much food being created, produced, moved across the country that we're now, you know, a much larger company than that.
He's an unlikely, unassuming meat magnate whose views have ruffled feathers in the past. Bill Niman's beliefs about mainstream agricultural practices inspired him to purchase his own ranch near San Francisco, California, back in the late 60s.
And our goal was to produce our own food, feed our own families, and I guess today it's thought of as living off the grid.
After finding success with providing food for family and friends, Niman's next step was selling meat to San Francisco restaurants. Along the way, the Niman name got to be associated with tasty meat.
Our brand became well known amongst people who were concerned about what they eat and, most importantly, liked great tasting meat.
Far from the restaurant tables or the store shelves, this is where Bill Niman says the success of his company begins.
This one's straight, Zach. Let it go straight.
Richard Hamilton is one of more than 600 farmers and ranchers who raise livestock for Niman.
We sell to Niman an all-natural lamb. We try to keep them out on the grass to around 115 pounds.
Well, it's something I just fundamentally believe in. I believe that the animals are what they eat, and therefore, if we're going to eat them, we are what they eat. So they really need to be fed a wholesome diet. They don't need to have antibiotics or hormones. Animals that thrive and have the right temperament and are accustomed to human beings when they're at the slaughterhouse, for example, are not stressed. If they're in a stressed state, it's going to degrade the meat.
Niman does allow antibiotics to treat sick cattle. And because not all of the grain fed to Niman's livestock comes from organic sources, the meat products get the natural label instead of organic.
Bill believes in it, we believe in it, and he's rewarding us for it.
Part of Niman's philosophy also includes developing relationships with the farmers and ranchers who raise the livestock that ends up sold under the Niman name. There are even farmer profiles on the Niman Meats website.
But one thing in agriculture today, we've learned to be creative. As much as we've been production orientated, and Niman Ranch is a big piece of what our creativity's become.
It costs more to raise and process this livestock naturally. Those costs can be seen reflected in the price that consumers will see at their supermarket meat counter or on the restaurant menu. But folks are willing to pay more for the natural label. And while it's still just a fraction of the $100 billion U.S. meat industry, natural meat producers are finding a growing market.
That kind of interest at the consumer level is going to be responded to by the industry. We got a long road to hoe, and I'm hopeful that little by little we're going to restore a more sensible and sustainable kind of traditional way of treating animals and the land